Welcome back to Wargaming World, to 2021, and to a new game of The Men Who Would Be Kings. So it's a return to Zululand for the first game of 2021, and I've taken a couple of weeks off before starting to do new videos for this year, and bought a couple of things, including a new battle mat. And it's the reason why I've started with a war game in this period, because I bought this from Geek Villains, and it's absolutely super. I really like the table, and it's I think really looks suitable for this particular period. So I put it down, and I thought I'd spend a bit of time so you can have a look at it. And if you want to know where to get it from, you can drop a line at the end of it, and I'll let you know if you're not familiar with Geek Villain already. So, just thought I'd mention a couple of things about this mat. I've used Javis beforehand. That's what I've had as the base mat, and I've been perfectly fine with it. And obviously the table has been okay. It's been fine for the videos, but I thought I'd add something a little bit different. And this cover, what I particularly like about it, as well as the fact that it has all the different colours, it looks very authentic, is the fact that you can just add hills underneath it, and it fits easily. It's really completely natural, and it looks really good in a war game. I particularly like the fact that you can add that. A lot of tabletops, including my own, will be fairly flat, so I like the fact that it adds that aspect of undulation, and it runs right across the table. It's 6x4 in total, so that covers my table, which is sort of 8 by 3.5 to about this point here, where I then add a river and all trees behind it. Okay, so let's explain what's taking place in the game today, and how we're going to have a look at the objectives for winning and losing. The objectives for the British is relatively simple. We have 4 units here, 3 of which are active units, so it's the 3 units which are in line. What we have to do is each unit, and what I mean by a unit is a unit with 12 men, have to leave the board up to the top of that hill, and that will mean in the next game they will get a full unit. So that means we're assuming that the unit which have the wounded, and they're removing some of the ammunition as well, they will withdraw without too much difficulty, and that will give us 1 unit for the next game. The idea then is for each of the remaining 3 to withdraw in exactly the same way, and if we can withdraw with all 3 of them, then we'll have 4 units in the next game each. So that would seem fairly simple if it was just the fact that the British had to withdraw, but of course they have the Zulus to contend with, and the Zulus have been able to get across a local river, as it's got shallow enough to get across, and now it'll be a full force attacking the British. And so the game is going to be fairly simple, is that if the British can hold the Zulus off and make a fighting withdrawal and get ideally 3 and possibly even 4 units off the table, that would be a major victory. If the British can only get 2 units off the table, and when I say a unit, it has to be 12 men, so it's increments of 12. If they only get 2, it's going to be a draw, and if they can only get 1, and indeed that'll be because they'll have been engaged and indeed wiped out really by the Zulus on the table, it obviously is a Zulu victory. So let's take a look at the forces and, critically, the leaders. Now let's take a look at the forces. I'm going to make it slightly complicated. The British have 4 units here, but there are only 3 which are realistically active. So with the 3 units at the front here, they're all elite, and the one in the centre are sharpshooters. So as a consequence, the sharpshooters are 9, and the two units are 7 points each. And the unit which are withdrawing, they're also going to be elite, so I'm going to spend 1 point on that. And the reason is because the British have to take a test to move, and I don't want to make the game impossible for them, so therefore we're going to have that additional point for the British. And so for the Zulus we have 6 units at full strength. The 2 units which are furthest away are just standard units, which are 3 points each, and all 4 of the remainder are all fierce fighters, which are 4 points each. And so for an additional 2 points to make it up to 24, we've got this small Zulu unit. They've all got carbines from the British, and although I might say that they are poor shots, they are armed, so they are a leaderless group, but yeah, we'll see if they take the odd shot and see if they make a difference. Now I'm going to add in a little bit of extra luck or bad luck for the British. The 2 units which aren't sharpshooters, which is the from where we're looking is on the left hand side and on the right hand side, are going to be limited with ammunition. You can see at the back there that they're getting a lot of the ammunition and withdrawing it for another day. So we're going to see how many times these 2 units on the flanks can fire volley fire. So I'm going to say that they could fire regular, but when it comes to volley fire, we're going to limit the number of times they can fire. So we're going to roll 1d6 plus 1 for each of the units. So left hand side first of all, only 2, and on the right hand side 5 in total. Now, one of the things we have to work out is the leadership of each of the regiments. So we're going to roll for this. I've also got a new dice box after people have mentioned the fact that it's very loud, the ones I've been using beforehand, so hopefully this will be a lot softer. And this is how it works. So with the red dice, when we roll it, this is going to be their leadership skill, their leadership level. And then we roll 2 dice for the traits. So the blue dice is going to be the first trait, the green dice is going to be the second trait. So we have 6 leaders for the Zulus and 4 for the British. So let's take a look and see how they are. Let's start with Company A for the British. That's the one on the left hand side. So we have a 4, 5, 6. B Company 2, 6, 3. C Company 6, 3, 2. Attention! And finally the leader as we withdraw up the hill, 3, 5, 4. Zulu units 1, 5, 4. Second unit 4, 1, 6. 2, 3, 2. Fourth unit 5, 1, 2. Now the 2 units that aren't fierce fighters, 2 leaders, we have the first one is 3, 4, 4. And finally 6, 2, 6. And so now we have our leaders, now we have our limitation for firing for the 2 units with volley fire. It's time to start with turn 1 and to see the Zulus start to advance. So now I've had a look at the leaders, and what it means is the Zulus on the left hand side, their left flank, have some good leaders. but the remainder are not awfully good. Now the Zulus move without having to take a test, so they can advance without a problem. But when it comes to engaging with the British, that might be more of a challenge. The British, on the other hand, have some good leaders, but on the British right flank, we have to remember that the unit there can only fire 2 rounds of volley fire. It can fire as normal, but it's the volley fire advantage that it won't really get. So let's start the game and see how we go. Just for anybody who hasn't seen this game beforehand, the tribal forces, their regular move is 8 inches, so this is about, you can see the difference between the ones who've moved and haven't from the Zulus, and they're also not interrupted by difficult ground, so this in front of them here won't cause any problem on the second move. Now my first thought is, do I start moving the British units already up the hill, and I'm going to decide against it. So the 3 in the line are going to stay as they are. The only thing that needs to happen is the 4th one on the hill already is going to continue to move, so we need to take a test. Our leader has 6, but they are elite, so they need 4s to pass and then to move 6 inches. 4s required, and yes they have, and a successful withdrawal to complete the first turn. Now in this turn, second turn, the Zulus will move into range of the British. So a choice really is to think on the left hand side, the Zulu flank, whether we would move into range or we would allow the other units to take casualties. However, if you follow the rules of the men who would be kings, then the suggestion is to follow the Mr. Babbage approach if it's just a solo play, and that's what we are doing, and as a result there's no doubt that all the forces would move as quickly as possible towards the British. So everybody is going to move and advance. Okay, the Zulus continue to advance, and the British are going to fire with all 3 of its units. Okay, starting over here on the left hand side, we've got 12 men. It's just regular fire, it's at long range, so that means when we hit it needs 2 hits for a kill to remove the figures, and it's a 5 to hit. 5's required. Seems quite a few there. So that's 5 hits, which means there's 2 figures removed, and we need to take a pin test. So the normal leadership would be 6. We've taken 2 casualties, so we need an 8 to pass that test. We don't, so the unit is pinned. So with the unit being pinned over here, it means that in the next turn all they can do in terms of their action is to see whether they can be unpinned, so it means they won't be moving. The one thing we didn't test as well is that we need to make sure that the casualty wasn't the leader. Now that can only happen if it's a double 1, and it's not. Now the unit in the middle are sharpshooters, so it's not a 5 to hit, it's going to be a 3 and firing at this unit in the middle. 3 is required. Therefore we've got well, there's 7 hits there, so it's 3 casualties. Let's just test if one is a leader. No, it isn't. And we need a very high number in terms to see whether we can pass a pin test. They fail with a 5, and therefore they're pinned. Same test over here. Going to be 5s with 12 firing. This time they're firing at this unit. 5's required. And 2 casualties. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Are they pinned? Yes, they are. So, start of the game there. The whole front line for the Zulus is stalled. However, the units can move through them. That's one option that we've got, and look to see whether these units can actually rally. Okay, let's take 3 pin tests for the first 3 units to start this turn. This leader at the start here has a leadership of 7. We've got 1 pin, so we need to get 8 to pass the test. No, we don't, so they remain in that position. The second has a leadership of 9, and we've got 1 pin, so 10 to pass it. No, we don't. And the final leader has a leadership of 6. 1 for the pin, who needs 7, and he passes. So the Zulus are a little bit stuck there. These 2 units won't move, and they will have to test in the next turn. The one furthest away here has passed. It can't move because its action for this turn has been to rally. It's been able to do so. Now the unit behind them can move through the units, and will do, but this is where the Zulus slow down quite considerably. Now the one unit that hasn't been affected is this one, the skirmishers here on the right hand side. Now they can move and fire, but if you move and fire as skirmishers, it is at half effect. So they are going to move. They're going to get close enough to the British here on the British left flank, and we'll have 2 men firing. They are poor shots, so they need 6s to hit. So let's see if they get any. So needing 6 casualty, and there is one. So 1 British is killed. Let's just see if it's the leader. Need a double 1. No, it's not. Now we need to take a leadership test for the unit. We've taken 1 casualty. It's a leader of 7, however they are an elite unit, so it has a bonus of 2, which is 5. Taking 1 casualty, so we need to make 6 with this roll. 7, it does so. So that's the end of the Zulu movement, and now for the British firing. We'll start with this unit on the left hand side who've taken a casualty. They're still in long range, so it's at 5s to hit, and we need 2 casualties to remove the figure. This time they're firing at this unit, so 11 dice. That's 5 hits, so 2 casualties. Let's just test and see if it's the leader. No, it isn't. Now the unit have a leadership of 7. We've taken 2 casualties, so we need 9 to see whether we pass, and we don't, so it's pinned. Then got 12 sharpshooters, and that means they need 3s, and this is the new target. 3s required at long range. That's 8 dice and 4 casualties. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. This unit is automatically pinned because its leadership is 9, and with 4 there's no way it can pass. Final unit here on the British right flank are going to fire at the new unit, which are moving towards the difficult terrain there. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to fire at the unit it fired at first. I think if we were going to fire on the left hand side, it's going to be some kind of soft cover, so we'll just fire at the original target. 12 needing 5s, and that's 2 more casualties. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Let's test if they're pinned. The leader is 6 with 2 casualties. Is an 8 required? No, they are pinned. Now, at the end of the 3rd turn, other than these skirmishers on the right hand side and the unit which are on the furthest left, all 5 of the Zulu units are pinned. The British, although they've taken 1 casualty, are in a very good position. And in terms of this game generally, if the British remain here in this sort of static line, it's not impossible, but it's nigh on impossible for the Zulus really to make an impact. Even by the time they get to close range, the British will start firing volley fire, and when they're in close order they also fight better as well. So it's really very difficult for the Zulus to be successful with a frontal assault. Now, I point all of this out just really for players of the Men Who Would Be Kings to come up with thoughts about some alternatives. Now, I've done a number of videos of this period, and what I've put across is some change in format. So I've had double phases for different sides, and I've put up set scenarios, so the British to a disadvantage, trying to move through a certain area. So I've had both sides win the game, but I do think you need to be creative, but not to such an extent where you make it impossible for one side to be successful. And as it's a solo game, again, it makes it rather difficult. So it'd be great if people had some thoughts to make with regards to the game, or ideas. You could put that on this channel, or on my own Facebook group, which is Wargaming World. Just join that and have that discussion, and we can be a little bit more creative about what we do. I'll continue with the game, but I'll point these things out just here. So we're on turn 4, Zulus first of all. We're going to fire with this unit here, 4 skirmishers, firing at the British, and then we have 5 tests to take, to rally, to see if we can get these 5 units away from being pinned. And then also, last thing, I have moved this unit on the far left hand side. It is now within volley fire of the British, so we'll see how that happens when we're firing. One thing to add in terms of these rally tests, we need to add 1 in terms of the leadership. If we get a very low roll, these units rout, so that's just one thing to bear in mind. So I'm going to do the firing first of all of these 4, and then we'll do all of the tests. So they are poor shots, these 4, but if they get 6s, it's a casualty, and they're near enough to the British to mean that the casualty is just 1 figure for 1 dice. Do we get any 6s? We get 2. Is it the leader? Very, very nearly, but it isn't. It's just 2 men, and they're now quite depleted. Also need to test the leadership. Leadership is 7. We've taken 2 casualties, which is a 9. It's an elite 4, so it's back down to 7, but we need 7s, otherwise they're pinned. They're fortunate, but the British are fine. So a few tests to do. Unit at the front there, leadership is 6, but it's also got pinned, so we're adding 1 each time. Need to make a 7, and it has done, so they're no longer pinned. This unit is leadership of 7 plus 1 is an 8. No, that's failed. Now both of these units are 9s, so we need a 10 to pass. Now front unit, I suspect this means they're going to rout, because we lose 1 because of the firing, so I'll just take a look in a moment. And so, as I mentioned, we have a leadership here of 9. We reduce the roll by 1 because of the pin, so when we roll a 3 it goes down to 2, and with 2 1s the unit unfortunately routs. It means it's automatically removed from the board. And also the impact on the one behind it is the following, is that as that one is routing, this one has to take a pin test anyway to see whether it can rally, but it needs to take a pin test also when it sees the unit in front of it rout. So I also think 1 or 2 other units nearby would need to do the same, but I don't want to completely work against the Zulus. I'm just going to take 2 tests for the one behind. So first of all, this is just a rally, so it's a rally test that it's taking. Oh, and it's had exactly the same thing. So both of these units now rout in the centre, and in doing so I think we're almost at the end of the game, somewhat before we've started. Just for completeness, I'm going to test the last one, the unit at the back there. Same test required, and with an 8 it will pass. Well, that's a disaster. The entire Zulu centre has disappeared, and just for completeness I'm going to do the British turn of this game, but I think the game is well and truly over. Okay, so over here the British will fire volley fire in close order. It's in short range, needing 4s, and each casualty is counts as 1. There's actually only 3 hits there. Is it the leader? No, it's not. Is the unit pinned? Yes, it is. In the centre, the sharpshooters will now take a new target, and they will fire at this one. 12 needing 3s. That's 7 hits at long range, so it's 3 figures. Is it the leader? No, it's not. We need to get 2 6s to avoid being pinned. And they are. And on the left-hand side we can fire at the skirmishers. In fact, there's only 9 men firing. 9 men firing, but it's volley fire and needing 4s. And that's 3 killed, and I think we're going to call it game at that point. So, we've had some very unfortunate rolls for the Zulus. It's not inconceivable that that type of thing happens for the British player, but unfortunately very much is a British victory here. There's not really a great deal more we can do. We've got the Zulu units pinned. The British can fire continually at pinned units, and then they can withdraw back up the hill as they wish at somewhat their leisure. So that's going to be the end of the game here, and very much a British victory. So I was just going to say thanks very much for watching. Appreciate any thoughts that you might want to put in here for the channel and on the game. And if you want to join the Wargaming World Facebook group, then please do. I'll just let you in terms of the group and carry on conversation, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like. Also, I will have a think about how we do things maybe slightly differently with other games, and please feel free to come back with your own suggestions. One of the things I'm going to do is add in some firearms into the Zulu, so they can be firing as well at the British, interrupt them hopefully. And yeah, I think might be some of the scenarios where there's something slightly different for the British, which means they can't simply line up and fire at will. So that's the end of the game here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.